We have publicly announced partnerships with OpenAI, Perplexity, and other LLMs that really takes the world of commerce to a totally different level. I can just now, in the world of AI, say, buy me a pair of Hoka ATR Challenger size 10 and a half as soon as they drop below 140 bucks. And it knows how to pay, where to ship, what expectations I have in terms of return policy. And that's where things are going to go.
And welcome to the Venture to Victory podcast, where we look at the entrepreneurial journey from startup to exit. And we've got a really fun one today. If you're wondering what's happening in the world of finance and payments, crypto rails, big institutions, we've got an amazing guest today who's running a big portion of business for PayPal. We're going to get into all the new things that are kind of happening. And that is my guest, Norm. Norm, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to have you on because this is an area that's such great interest to me. And I think it's one of the areas that's going to change so fundamentally, and it's affecting everybody in the world today. If you, your wife, your children, everybody's using some type of electronic distribution platform, whether it's Venmo or Zelle or PayPal or Wise. There's millions of them. It's becoming the way that we conduct and do transactions, and AI is going to have a huge impact. And I can't imagine anyone is more on the forefront based on history, size, and their embedded base than PayPal. So I can't wait to talk about all this stuff today.
Yeah, we have a ton of exciting things going on that I'm happy to share.
That's great. So I want to do a quick intro like I always do. Hope I don't botch it up too much. But Norm is a veteran software as a sales as a service operator. And he has a kind of a rare mix of technical and commercial depth. He's been both a software developer and engineer earlier in his career. He's co-founded and CEO of multiple companies. And he's currently the SVP of North America Small Business Sales at PayPal. Norm spent time at Intuit, where he helped grow QuickBooks SaaS base from under 200,000 to over 1 million global users. That's a 5x growth. And I was actually part of both of those. Desktop application QuickBooks for generations. I tried the online version, as we call it. So I'm a user of all that stuff, and it is pretty amazing. Later, he went on to Evernote, which I can never get out of my head because every time I'm driving down the freeway, I would see the building with the giant Evernote sign.
Yeah.
So that's been ingrained in my head, where he led global revenue partnerships with key partners like Slack, Google, and Microsoft. He was also the CEO of Easy Texting, where he drove a business messaging platform to full growth and profitability. And then at Varion, which is an avionics software company, Norm took over a 75,000 user base and led several strategic acquisitions, and then launched the AI-powered Air platform, which helps aircraft operators anticipate maintenance and supply needs, which are good for safety and for reducing costs and parts defects. And it's a niche industry, but very, very cool because it leads into a topic that we're going to talk about, which is why so many people in midlife, particularly men, want to now all of a sudden fly airplanes and are actually going ahead and getting their pilot's license. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are thinking that, and birds of a feather flock together. Maybe this will be inspiration for them to actually go ahead and do that. So that's pretty cool. Norm holds multiple U.S. patents. And as we said, he sits at that center of vertical SaaS, AI, and now the payment space. And he's just completed his instruments training for his private pilot's license. So I want to jump right into the big thing because, every day, today we've got, I guess the last couple of weeks, we had a little bit of a crypto crash going on. And at some point in the time, traditional banks and traditional ways of doing things are going to be replaced by crypto rails and blockchain, whether it's private or whether it's held by big institutions. So it's the fodder is out there everywhere we look. I think you mentioned PayPal has an installed user base over 400 million people. That's incredible. And there's, I think you mentioned over 90 million on top of that with Venmo. So we're looking at almost, oh my gosh, that's a half a billion people using the application.
People in the world use our platform. Yeah.
That is incredible. So I'd like to find out, so how is PayPal thinking about this explosion in these new software platforms. I mean, obviously we know that you had acquired Venmo, but we've got Zelle, Cash App is big. I've actually used Wise several times for
Mhm.
we did a deal with someone in Nigeria, and so internationally you've got that kind of stuff going. What's its perspective on where the world is going, and maybe what your personal strategy is to the degree it's public, and you can share that with us.
Yeah, so I think your story about global financial transactions is dovetails perfectly into what our strategy, and as we have sort of this concept of hyperwallet,
Hmm.
and it really is all of the different wallets are need to sort of come together and sort of abstract that from the end user. So if you need to send me money, we're not saying, well, what platform are you on?
Right.
And so we have a product called Hyperwallet that does a really nice job of sort of abstracting that. And if you think about even in the last couple of years, like you've gone from carrying a wallet probably and having credit cards in it. You used to have cash in it, probably don't have any cash in your wallet anymore. Um, to now being in a situation where like I almost never have a wallet on me, and I have to like think when I'm going to the airport, like, oh, I got to bring my wallet because I have an ID and I've got a
Yeah.
your physical card in certain places. But really, the world is changing so dramatically in all the different mechanisms to make payments. And what we're trying to do is allow you to make the payments with the tool that you feel is right, and we'll actually just orchestrate that through our Hyperwallet platform.
So the hyper wallet is that does that include like crypto? Does it include applications beyond just Venmo or traditional PayPal? Like this idea of a universal wallet or a universal app that where you can conduct all financial transactions sounds like nirvana. I didn't even know anyone's really even working on it, but if anyone were, it probably would be PayPal. Maybe you could go a little depth of what that's like. I'm a little bit excited by
Yeah,
it.
I can share just a little bit about what we've talked about publicly, and that is the
Right.
hyperwallet concept is launched, and it allows all different all different crypto wallets and sort of like I said, it's sort of the meeting point of many different currencies and online transaction platforms, and it will sort of again allow you to transact in sort of the payment type of your choice. And so I bought my first crypto recently, and I bought it within the PayPal app, but I can actually transact that in many different platforms.
So that's kind of interesting. So the first thing, if you ever do a crypto transaction, is when you're waiting for the receipt of the transaction, and then you realize there's no one to call. There's no custodian. If it doesn't show up, you kind of pray and hope it's just late. But the big thing lately has been the talk around stable coins. You know, with Tether and Circle and the act that was just passed through Congress. Do you see that for PayPal using stable coins as kind of the effective token that you'd use for transactions peer to peer?
Yeah, I would have to say that stable coins, we have our PYUSD
Okay.
coin. And that's I really think that will be the future, not necessarily just PYUSD, but the
Yeah.
stable coins. Um, and what's fun about it, Tim, is it's evolving so quickly. And there's certain places in the world where I think we're far more advanced than we are in the US.
Yeah.
But it's an area that I think we're going to look back on and say, my gosh, we should have done this 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think a third of the world is technically unbanked, and a lot of people live in places where the fluctuation in what the value is of the currency can be so dramatic. So, classic, you're some country in Africa, you're trying to do business, someone pays you in the local currency. If you sit on it for, first of all, if you have a bank. And you're sitting on that local currency. Who knows what the value is going to be a week or two
Hmm.
later? I mean, I lived this in the '80s where I'd go to Argentina all the time, and we would never negotiate based on price. A little bit on price, but credit terms would be the thing because you're losing 2% of the value
Hmm.
every single day. So I think that's kind of interesting on people that are unbanked because right now Venmo and PayPal they, from what my understanding is and personal experience, is they're working through their major lending institutions. In other words, you could have a PayPal account, but the money's got to go to your bank account at some point. You do a transfer. Same thing with Venmo. How would that work with stablecoins if you truly go peer to peer?
Yeah, a lot of this stuff will actually um, sit outside of the banking rails.
Hmm.
And so, if I owe you money, and I'll just use a basic PayPal example, if I owe you $50, I can pay you, via my PayPal account, and you can actually then use that for a commerce transaction via PayPal, and it never
Gotcha.
actually goes onto the regular payment rails. We will actually be doing. In 2026, then all of the PayPal and Venmo users will be able to interact. And so, your daughter, and when you need to send her money, instead of just doing it on PayPal, you could do it, on Venmo, you can do it on PayPal and vice versa. So there's a lot of interchange that, or sort of interconnectivity that we're building in.
Yeah.
But I think that, again, we're trying to build sort of the world's wallet, not just one that is specific to PayPal. But like a lot of people, I'll use the Venmo example. They'll carry a Venmo balance and
Yeah.
transact continuously just within our ecosystem. And so
Right.
they're not actually dropping that money back into a traditional bank account.
So as we were talking about pre-pod, if you take Zelle, for example, they had like a consumer app for doing that. And then about 6 or 7 months ago, they sent everybody notification that they're going to be cutting that out, and they're going just directly to the large banking institutions. So like if you, like for me, if you bank at Wells Fargo or B of A here in San Francisco, that is the way that you transfer money, kind of peer to peer to people. Where does PayPal sit with the large financial institutions? And do they see this as a pro or a con? In other words, if you're going to build these vast sums of money that sit as a pool independent of them, where transactions can happen, is that a threat, or are they recognizing that and saying, hey, we need to find a way to work with these applications so we can keep stuff on chain, our own chain, so to speak?
Yeah, each one of the platforms has its pluses and minuses, and I am a Zelle user. I pay my flight instructors, for example, on Zelle because they want the instant access to the funds in their
Yeah.
bank account versus the what we talked about earlier, and that is the slight delay that happens with access to your Venmo funds. Um, I do feel like we have incredibly good relationships with each one of the major banks, and it's a massive ecosystem, and there's so much competition in the world of payments. And like our biggest, competitors, we actually partner with them on a whole series of different things. And so when you look at Stripe or Adyen or even the major banks, we're all sort of working together but competing.
Right.
And so if you were to say, or do we have a tough relationship with like Wells Fargo? I think we have a great relationship with them because we actually facilitate payments that ultimately makes it into their ecosystem.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, let's jump to AI, because how is AI impacting what you guys are doing, particularly not just kind of the plumbing behind the scene and all that, but really AI in terms of the user experience for someone like myself who's trying to conduct transactions with my kids or
Yeah, I think that I'll take it to the world of agentic commerce because
okay.
ultimately what PayPal focuses on is how do we help ensure that the world's finances are moving seamlessly. And in the world of commerce, so much of what we've done, began what we'll call it in the early 2000s, where you could buy something online and I had to pay you, and you're not going to accept the check any longer for that item on eBay. You actually want to get paid, and so that was sort of the earliest days of PayPal. If you fast forward to today, you'd say, well, you're still going through a catalog and you're selecting something and you're clicking on it and you're selecting your payment method. We've actually worked on some things that we have publicly announced partnerships with OpenAI, Perplexity, and other LLMs that really takes the world of commerce to a totally different level. And so I'm a runner, and so I buy my running shoes every few months, and I use the same, e-commerce store every time, and I buy the same thing every time. And really, that's, in the grander scheme of things, it's a pretty simple transaction. But I can just now, in the world of AI, say, buy me a pair of Hoka ATR Challengers size 10 and a half as soon as they drop below 140 bucks. And it knows, sort of, it may or may not care what color I want. I don't really care. It knows how to pay, where to ship, what expectations I have in terms of return policy,
Right.
um, and you're sort of hands off on that. And so that's really sort of where things are going to go when it comes to commerce. And so some of the things that we're doing is working with the large LLMs, then also ingesting product catalogs from a lot of our customers around the world. And so when you do go to one of the LLMs and say, I'm interested in buying a new backpack, it's going to say, okay, well, do you want a 20 liter, a 30 liter, or 40 liter? Do you care what color it is? And then it's going to go find it and say, is this the one you want, and purchase it.
Yeah.
And so there's so many different, and I think these are fairly rudimentary use cases, but it'll start to figure out who are the reputable places to purchase from, who has return policies, payment terms, other things like that that fit your specific needs. I think we're going to see a massive shift in the way that people um, conduct commerce over the coming years.
Yeah, and this is just starting, and that idea that you can go to whatever your favorite AI application is, whether it's Grok or, like you said, there's a million of them. Let's take ChatGPT as an example, OpenAI. The idea that you could shop through prompts just for that, and you don't even need to go off platform for anything else. I mean, that's going to fundamentally restructure, whole way e-commerce has been done for the last 20 years. And you've got to think Amazon's thinking about that, and Google's thinking about that, and no longer do we have to go to multiple platforms, do research, and decide where we
Yeah.
want to go. The OpenAI platform is going to take over everything, the same way as search is changing right now. No longer you doing search, right, without AI and pulling up a bunch of links and reviewing, trying to figure out what it is. It's going to come back and give you the information from a single prompt or two. And it's going to, I don't even know how that's going to impact profitability of so many places when the source of the transaction comes from the AI platform and not the merchant. So, I mean, a
Yeah.
lot's going to
There's a
change.
whole thing. I don't know if you've heard of headless commerce, but
I have not.
that's the description of what you just gave, and that is,
Okay.
going to that end merchant website. You may not do that in the future, and so those websites, they're trying to control the experience. And if you look at web traffic to commerce sites and many other sites, we're already seeing a pretty significant shift from just you know the Googles of the world to now it's actually shifting to the LLMs. And so merchants around the world and companies have to rethink how they're actually going to connect with customers, whether it's
Yeah.
to have them buy a product or something else. And so, one of the value propositions we bring is, we have over 30 million merchants that we have the good fortune of serving, and we're helping them sort of transition into this new world. And if you think about the beauty of what Intuit did, and that's why what I sort of fell in love with the world of small business, and now and PayPal does, is like you provide a tool set to the little guy,
Yeah.
that smaller company that doesn't have a huge IT department or any IT department. They don't have the sophistication of understanding, well, I want to accept crypto, or I want to do, I want to actually expose my product catalog to an LLM. They don't have any of that, and they shouldn't have to. And so we're able to bring that power to many merchants around the world, and that's, I think, what's going to be such an exciting unlock.
So for PayPal, obviously being the large player, that's going to be building those partnerships and relationships with all the various LLMs and that are sprouting up that's got to be a big part of the business, right? I mean, you want to be a part of the platform that undergirds all of those future transactions, regardless of where you go to. So behind the
Yeah.
scenes, I'm sure that's part of the big strategy.
It really is. And again, we've talked about this publicly. And one of the unique benefits we have is we're a two-sided network, which is incredibly unique. We've got both the 438 million consumers or
Hmm.
users of the PayPal app. We have the 90 million of Venmo, and then we have all the merchants.
Yeah.
And so we're able to help those merchants drive business. We're able to actually expose things within our apps that drive merchants. And it's a very unique value proposition, one that, I think we're really excited about. And frankly, I think it's going to differentiate us into this next wave of commerce.
Well, that's awesome. More to come on that end. Any day you open up the any type of article or do a search, you're going to find kind of new positive changes in that area. So it's pretty exciting. Not for the faint of heart, of course, though, as well. Which companies are going to make it, which aren't, which are overvalued. We're seeing kind of that whole thing shake out. But I wanted to switch real quickly because you were the CEO of Varion, which you talked about before, which is a software platform for managing a variety of things with aircraft, essentially everything from scheduling to parts to AI coming in to determine when a part is no longer be good. I guess the smart machines is what we think about that started years ago, right? Where diagnostics will be done automatically and they'll be more predictive, et
Hmm.
cetera. But that was in the aviation space. And I know you just got your pilot's license. And we were talking about before, um, so many people I know that are primarily men, between the ages of like 40 and let's say 55, are all wanting to learn how to fly right now. Like there's something happening in the air where men want to get back up in the sky. Uh, did your passion for this, did it start out of kind of the experiences that you had running that company and kind of being tied into the ecosystem? Or I'm imagining you spoke to a lot of pilots and a lot of people in the industry as customers.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little funny story. Now, it was on my 30th birthday. I was living in the Netherlands, and my wife gave me a what's called a discovery flight, and you go up with an instructor. And I was in this little Cessna 172, and I was living in the Netherlands. And so the instructor didn't speak very much English, and I didn't speak very much Dutch. And so it was a little bit of like, I think I'm in control of this plane. He's like, his hands were like in his lap. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And the plane was certainly older than me. And I had my wife in the back and my like 1 year old daughter. And
Oh my gosh.
I landed the plane, sort of air quotes, like he did a lot of the work, but you got the
Yeah.
chance to fly it. And I thought, I'm good. Like, this is totally not what I want to be doing. Like, it's very Boolean. You're like alive or you're not.
Yeah.
And as I thought about the world of fender benders in an airplane, I thought, what, this is an interesting. So fast forward to when I was running Varion. Everybody in sort of the aviation space, people are there for their passion for aviation. It's not like financial services or other things like that where people get into it because it seems like a logical career path. So many people are in aviation because of just raw passion.
Yeah.
And the industry is there's so many veterans and others in there who have incredible life stories of how aviation has really shaped their life. And I've always been sort of a mountain person. So I've been a skier my whole life and backpacker and love getting sort of off the grid. And so I was sitting at this dinner with a whole group of people from this company, Cirrus, and it's a piston engine aircraft company. They make more airplanes than any other company in the world now. And we were going around the table, and people were talking about what they do in aviation. And literally everybody at this table at dinner flew, and I was like, oh. So there's a sweet lady next to me, and she was about my age, and I sort of leaned over and I was like, haha, I bet you fly too. And she's like, yeah, I do. And so the person there was a guy named Robbie. He was an ex-Harrier pilot. He said, you should go up for a discovery flight in a Cirrus. And I went up one time and I was hooked. And the
Yeah.
reason
Wow.
is it's like, one, to your point about, people at various ages. One, I've been a lifelong learner, and I want to like absorb more information and challenge myself. I'm pretty geeky, so I've always been into software, and now with glass panel cockpits, it's incredibly sophisticated software, and you feel a lot more safe, and really there's a lot more to pay attention to than the old round gauges in the cockpit. And you can there's I think 3,600 airports in the U.S. and you have so much freedom for adventure. And I thought, what, this is really an exciting thing for me. And the age thing also probably has to do with economics. that as you
Yeah.
get older and maybe some kids are dropping off the payroll,
Right.
you might have a little bit more discretionary income because it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
It's
I
a lot.
and I just I feel like there's just a lot of different things that come together. And this weekend I flew down on Saturday, just picked up my daughter down in San Diego, flew back, and I've had my license now for a couple of years, but I just got my instrument rating, which was
Yeah.
probably the most difficult academic thing I've done since college.
Yeah. 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 As we talked earlier, some people know this, but my daughter goes to Embry-Riddle University in training to become a jet pilot. And she's wanted to do that since she was 4. And when she was sharing with me what she does for her instrument certification training, which she just went through, she only flies at night, like at 10 o'clock. It's pitch black out there in Arizona. And she has to fly with like a tarp over her head. So from the takeoff to landing, you can't see anything.
Yeah.
There's just nothing to see, and you're floating around. And to me, it sounds a little bit exciting and terrifying at the same time. But yeah, kudos to anyone that wants to do it. I got to share a funny story because I think maybe we missed a slight calling to make a lot of money when we were younger. But I was like the top sales guy at this big corporation, and I met this guy on an airplane, and he worked for Gulfstream. And I lived in Southern Cal. He said he liked me a lot, and I was always looking, am I in the right industry? If I'm really good at sales in this industry, maybe I should get to the big playing field. And I never knew about that. So he says, well, come on down to Long Beach. I'll take you out to lunch. I'll show you some of the Gulfstream. I think at the time there was only the Gulfstream 4.
Uh-huh.
That was the biggest corporate jet. So we're on the runway, and he's saying, well, this is, and he says, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger's plane, and they're revamping it with $5 million, and he bought it for like 30 million. We're going through this whole thing. And he was telling me like it's the most amazing job. I get to meet CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and like people in the royal family in Saudi Arabia, and in celebrities, because it's a very high ticket option. I'm thinking of the commissions you can make selling a $30 million plane, which who knows what it is today, 80 million or whatever it is. And he said there's also one problem though. I actually have to take, when I have my clients visit the airplane, my prospective clients, I actually have to fly them all over when we do the test drive. So, looking back, if you're a would-be potential salesperson, you also have your pilot's license, there's a great place to meet wealthy, powerful people and make a lot of money in the process.
Yeah, the people who sell the Bombardiers and the Gulf Streams and some of those other planes, they stay at those companies their entire career because it's such a compelling um, place. Obviously, the when you sell a plane, it's probably a fairly good commission check. They treat you
Yeah.
really well, and like you said, you get to really meet some incredibly accomplished people.
And if you're a single, it's and you got a great A game, right? The perfect line, like, hey, I sell large commercial aircraft, some of the wealthiest people in the world, and I fly them all around. Like, who wouldn't want to go on a date with somebody like that at least once? I'm sure there's a little cockiness that comes from it too. But that's really amazing. That's such a cool thing. I'm going to look for more to come for you, because one I think I've learned is that there's always another level you can get in flying. There's always more
Yeah.
certifications and different types of planes that you can learn. So for all of us, so older guys that still have the craving to do something exciting, and we don't want to bungee jump and our knees hurt too bad, a mountain climb, flying airplanes could be the adrenaline thing that gets us going for the next decade or so, for sure. One of the things we do on the Venture to Victory podcast is it's designed for people that have had a lot of success over a long period of time to kind of look back and share things that worked and didn't work, maybe some of the scars that we've got and some
Uh-huh.
of the lessons that we've learned. And so, I'm looking at your stuff. I mean, you've scaled QuickBooks, which we all know about, and led Evernote with the revenue side, and you've been CEOs of companies, and of course, software companies in the aviation space. What advice would you give to maybe a founder or a person starting out who's trying to scale up the company, say going from 30 to 150 employees or whatever? What are some of the big bumps in the road that maybe they should take a look at early on that you could pass on as future wisdom?
Yeah, so a really smart investor who's on the very on board with me. He used this term, and I had never heard it until a few years ago. He's like, you got to get rich slow. And I think so many people think that starting a company is like the ticket, and all I need to do is, just do a couple of years. We're going to grow really quickly, and then somebody's going to come buy us. And my life lesson on that is, The second company I started was a company called Anachron, which is a play on the word anachronistic, which is something that's out of place in time.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat ironic because we are a little bit out of place in time. We started the company in Amsterdam. It was all about online bill presentment and payment. And we started a B2B model, or sorry, B2C model. And then we pivoted to B2B when we realized that large invoices needed to get, have workflow and other things associated with them. And it was one of these things where you're like, hey, this is going to be a rocket ship. We bootstrapped it. We eventually raised some money from in the European VC market at a time that everybody else around the world, the dot-com bubble was bursting. And so here's three North Americans. It was my wife, another Canadian, and then me with like literally a PowerPoint deck. We had built a demo, and we had an Excel spreadsheet that had like a really awesome hockey stick in it. And
Yeah.
and we had one signed customer, and everybody's like, so can you show me your 5-year financials? And I was like, we got 5-year projections. And they were like, no, your 5 past years. And we are like, let me just go back. We've got a demo, we've got a signed customer, and I got a PowerPoint deck.
Yeah.
And so it was like one of these things. We eventually raised money. We built the company. We had to do layoffs at various points because we had grown too fast, grown the
Yeah.
expense faster, but it wasn't an overnight success. And we ended up selling the company to a company called Bill Trust, a publicly traded U.S. company. It was a great outcome, but it was 19 years after we started the company. And so if you think about that, like getting rich quick is I'm sure it happens to many people that you see on the front page of the Wall Street Journal or others like that. But there's a lot of people that have a long, long road, and eventually, like we decided that three founders, the company got to a stage that we were no longer the right people to run the company. And
Yeah.
so we actually hired in a guy who was the CEO for the last 15 years of the company. And he's the one that, sold it and everything else, and was the brilliant person for that point in time. But so many lessons learned, like the founder may not be the right person to scale it. The success isn't going to happen overnight. You're going to trip and skin your knee a lot. And you got to do it with people you really care about and you want to do something really cool with, who are going to be willing to go on a crazy journey with you.
Yeah, and I think that's in today's environment where we read the headlines of, three guys just raised some exceedingly ridiculous amount of venture capital for AI, and the valuations now X billions of dollars. It's harder for a young person to not get kind of lured by that kind of false belief system. As I say all the time, people win the lottery every single day, but the fact that I can't just go there to the liquor store, buy a lottery ticket, and win. It's the odds are against you. It is a slow process. I have a future podcast guest coming on who bootstrapped his company for, I think, like 16 years, right? Raised a tiny bit of money, like a couple million. And then in like his 17th year, goes out and raises $100 million in a single round. So
Yeah.
I think that, and I don't think that person could have raised that money if they didn't have that long history. And that long history is it's never that. I know the hockey stick of projections is great when you make a pitch, but the hockey stick of practicality is a zigzag, up, down, hopefully always getting to a higher mountain, but that continuous drop, a little bit like Bitcoin, I would say, if you look at it that way. And I think,
Like MailChimp, I don't know if you know the story of
yeah,
MailChimp and their exit to Intuit. They had been around for, I want to say 15, 20 years, never taken on
yeah,
any capital. And, and they basically just kept running the business. And it was sort of the old traditional thing of like, let's just run the business.
yeah,
And they had an incredible outcome, and they were patient. But, I do think that all of the great stories that are told are of the hockey stick of that person that, raised money and had a really great outcome. And I think the better stories, the people that have, like I said, tripped and skinned their knee a couple of times and had a lot of lessons learned. Because I think, Tim, you and I probably could say that our best successes came out of something that was probably, it started as a failure.
yeah. And I would add to that, obviously running a national recruiting firm that works with early stage venture backed companies. I've seen zillions of them. We've placed over 1,000 people into them. We've had hundreds and hundreds of clients. And not only to your point about the patience within the giving company, most of the successful entrepreneurs that I've met have had several companies they started and they failed and had to start over again. So I think it's even more than just going slow and having the patience for your current gig, but it's looking over the career and realizing, it's a long haul and it's set with successes but pitfalls and failures.
Mhm.
And as I said before, I think Einstein said that failure is the porthole to discovery. And I think for a lot of younger people, they look at a failure as like a blemish. And as I always say, my son's a big wrestler. They always say in wrestling or jujitsu that you either win or you learn. And it is a journey. It's not about the belt. It's about the journey getting there. And so I think that's a big part of the mindset of an entrepreneur is it's okay to fail, expect to fail, always be learning, be patient, and eventually, if you're persistent and the timing's right and you get a little bit of luck, some amazing things can happen.
Yeah, and I think that also lends itself to, like, you've gotta do things with people who you like being with,
For sure.
who are willing to work as hard as you, work, and because, yeah, it's, if you don't have a great culture and you don't have sort of the right recipe, then you're just looking at the exit as the only outcome, and as
Yeah.
opposed to saying, like, the journey is really where you're gonna spend 99% of your time. So
Yeah.
make sure that
Yeah.
that's a good journey.
And where you really see the success of that is when an entrepreneur starts a new company and half the team says, "Wherever you're going, I want to come with you."
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's probably maybe the greatest feeling of satisfaction in anything. Like I've been through the war, and they want to fight another war with me. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always like to end the Venture Victory podcast with a question, which is in your business life, personal life, whatever, what does it mean to you in life to be victorious?
Hmm. Um, that's a great question. I wish you would have asked me that in advance.
That would be no fun.
Yeah. Um, I actually think doing something meaningful with somebody you care about. That to me is what victorious is, because I mentioned I'm an outdoors person, and I think about, like, I had an opportunity at one point in my life where I was able to ski, for a season. Um, and I realized that, like, skiing by yourself is no fun,
Yeah.
and you've got to do things with people you care about. And then that's really where the victory comes. And so, I told you the second company I started was with my wife when we,
Yeah.
had that exit. At the end, it was so sweet because we had taken the journey together.
Yeah.
And so, that's just one example of things that I would say are victorious. And whether it's in sports or with, business related things, you have to be surrounded by people who you believe in, you trust, they want to grind as hard as you want to grind. And they're good, a good cultural fit with what you believe is important.
Yeah. I to dovetail on that, if you played sports, you play individual sports, team sports. Individual sports are amazing when you're successful because you achieved a lot of it through your own abilities, sacrifice, and commitment. But in terms of the feeling of success, there's nothing like achieving it with other people.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing. Well, thanks so much. Where can people find you if they've got a big deal to do with PayPal? It's going to make everybody super successful, or you've got another 100 million subscribers to your service, and you want PayPal to underwrite all that for their new universal magical app that's coming out soon, where we can do everything. What's the best way to reach Norm?
Probably, just ping me on LinkedIn. I'm
Okay.
easy to find on LinkedIn. I don't have a very common name. It's just Norman Happ. Email is also an easy one. It's just nhapp at PayPal. And I'm always open to, exploratory conversations with people that just want to brainstorm on, sort of the what if. Sometimes people come with ready baked, here's something we can definitely do, and other times people say, here's something I'm thinking about, and that's where I think the best deals come from, and what makes, sort of deal making so exciting.
Well, that's awesome. There's so many new technologies are happening kind of in the fintech space overall, and so I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have great ideas, and they're dying to do partnerships with big institutions like PayPal. So hopefully, this podcast can create a merger of some of this. So, no, it's been awesome, and I want to thank you again for joining today.
Hey, well, thank you so much for your time, Tim. This has been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Cheers.
All right, bye bye.
The Venture to Victory podcast is provided by MatchStar Venture Search. If you're interested in any of our open executive roles or need help sourcing world-class talent for your company, check out our website at matchstar.com.